Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already, and drop a like on this video. Today's video is just going to be me going over hot takes as, you know, it says, so I don't know, why did I intro it like that? Let's just start. From Dom2K, if Lakers see Clippers in round 1 or 2, they are getting eliminated by them. It really depends how good the Lakers look in round 1, or I'm taking the presumption based on the seeding right now that the Clippers are the team they face in the second round, not the first. If it's round 1, I'm probably going to say yes to that. Round 2, though, I'm going to assume the Lakers build some chemistry over their first round series, because their first round series is very likely going to be a very good team anyways. So if they're coming off of a round 1 where they played very well and got their chemistry kind of in line, I'm going to pick them over the Clippers. But I do think it could be possible. I mean, I think the Clippers last year could have given the Lakers last year a fight, but because they blew that 3-win lead to the Nuggets, they were never going to get that kind of credit. So, I mean, the Clippers are better this year. The Lakers have a lot of issues this year just because of health being a thing. So, yeah, I think it's very plausible the Clippers win. If it is a round 2, though, I'm going to bet on the Lakers just because it's likely they figured out a lot of their problems. But if it's round 1, the Clippers are going to win that. From a key, with the emergence of Kobe White's streak of good games, this is a sign that he could possibly be an all-star one day. You know, a key, someone should probably tell you, and I would think you of all people would know this, that Kobe White has had streaks similar to what he's doing right now before. It's not really a huge deal. He hasn't fundamentally changed his game that significantly, and until he does that, I'm not going to give him the label of future all-star. I will say, though, it's an encouraging sign, but until I see consistency from Kobe White, I'm not going to be saying too much positive about him, and I think that's pretty fair. LeBron James will never decline in his career. Well, that's just not true, because he has already declined in his career. He's not as good as he was in 2013 or 2016. He's not far from it, but to say he's like 7-8% declined, I think is relatively fair. He's still the best player in the league, which is crazy that at like 37 and not as good as he used to be, he's still the best player in the league. But LeBron has declined a bit. And it depends on when he retires. If he went until he was 50, then he's going to fucking decline. If he retires at 40, he'll probably be 10 or maybe like 7% worse than he is right now. That's another decline. No, LeBron is not at his peak right now, and he hasn't been at his peak for like 8 years. So, no, he has declined already, and he will decline eventually. That's how time tends to work. The Popovich era should be over in San Antonio already. The Spurs need to rebuild, and Pop seems to refuse to be a part of that. Well, I held this opinion for a while, not necessarily that, like, the Spurs should fire Pop, but, like, it should probably be just a mutual parting of ways, because I don't see much reason for Pop to still be doing this, because, like, winning a championship is not in the books anytime soon. But honestly, what the Spurs did this year, even though they're not a playoff team, and I think they're out of the play-in tournament conversation, or they're not, it's not looking great. I like what they're doing in terms of not being entirely just like, or outright tanking. Like, I think it's good for Keldon Johnson and, what's his fucking name? DeJounte Murray, that they're not going all in on trying to be bad. I think generally speaking, tanking is just a toxic thing for a team's culture. And even if Popovich sometimes has some little bit old school ideas and he is keeping the team ceiling a little higher than you'd like so you can get a better draft pick, I think in general, just having a well-coached team, a generally decently well-managed team, and a winning culture, even if the talent isn't allowing the winning, is going to be a good thing long-term for your franchise. So no, I don't agree with this. In general, if you have a good foundation, I think you stick to it regardless of what players you may or may not miss in the lottery. The Knicks are making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, maybe. They'd probably have to upset one team along the way, but probably not. Probably a second round exit at the most. Maybe. Hard maybe on that one. If the offense the Knicks have been playing the last like 15 to 20 games sticks through the playoffs, and they continue to be the fantastic defensive team that they are, then maybe, but I'm really just going with a heavy maybe on that one. Every NBA title has an asterisk if you look hard enough. My point being that no title in history should actually have an asterisk. A ring is a ring. Yes and no. Every title does have like one little nitpicky thing that you can point to, but not every title has a very blatantly obvious, this thing significantly benefited this team on the way towards that championship. An example of this would be 2015 or 2019. Yeah, those titles still count 100%. But you can still say, like, hey, if Kevin Durant plays in the 2019 finals, the results are probably pretty drastically different. If the Cavs have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love for the entirety of the 2015 finals, things are probably different. That's perfectly fine to point that out, but also still credit those teams with those championships. You shouldn't not credit a team for the championship. A title can still have an asterisk, but I also don't think an asterisk should be as damning as some people make it out to be. It's just an acknowledgement of a factor that was outside of the team's control that resulted in them winning a championship. That does not take away the accomplishment, it just maybe muddies the actual value of it to an extent, but to outright dismiss it, I agree, is a stupid idea, but you can't say, oh, there's this one nitpicky thing with this championship and this one glaringly obvious thing, and those are equal, because they're not. The Heat are about as likely to return to the finals as the Lakers. This is a good one, and if you don't use it in the video, then you are fired. Rudy, I don't know if you know how this works, but you work for me, not the other way around. I can fire your bitch ass, so you better watch your tone. That was a joke, by the way. I'm a good boss. As for the take, the Heat are as likely to return to the finals as the Lakers. Nah, the Lakers just have more talent, so I'm going to go with them on that. I mean, the Heat do have the more chemistry built up over the year. They've had rough patches in the regular season, but I think come playoff time, they're going to turn it up better. I don't know. I could see it playing out that way. Just because the Heat have the chemistry with the Lakers have the talent. Really, it's just going to be a factor of which one matters more. I think just because the East is going to be a little bit easier, at least in the start. Actually, no, because they have to face the Nets in the East. So I'm going to disagree on that one. Just because the Lakers are more talented. And honestly, weirdly enough, just because the top team is not as good as the top team in the East, the West might actually be a little bit easier to get out of. More deep teams to go through. There's more depth of the teams you have to go through. But once you get to the actual conference finals, I'd rather be in the Western Conference Finals versus, I don't know, the Nuggets or the Jazz than in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Nets. Chris Paul's impact is slightly overrated since he's never made the finals before. If you want to argue that Chris's impact is overrated, fair enough. I disagree, but there is some validity to that opinion if you want to nitpick. But to suggest that it's because he never went to the finals, I think is pretty stupid, because when you look through Chris Paul's career and look at every instance where he had an opportunity to go further than he actually did, rarely was it actually his fault. It was pretty much always some other player on his team or something else just outside of his control impacting the actual result. Chris Paul consistently plays fantastic in the playoffs, and if anything, his team is what abandons him, not the other way around. If you want to view that as he's not impacting his team properly, I'm just going to have to disagree with you on that one. Bam Adebayo and Kyle Lowry are the most overrated players in the NBA. Bam Adebayo might actually be the most underrated player in the NBA, and Kyle Lowry has consistently been one of the most underrated players for the entirety of his career. So this is a bad take, Pizza Bagels, and you should feel bad for having said it. This is stupid. Comebacks are a lot more common now because of the pace and the three-point shot. A 15-point lead is not what it was 10 years ago. I don't know why you said 5. 5 is kind of the same, but like 10 years ago, I'm just going to interject that. And teams can now go on an 11-0 run in 3 minutes. People need to stop being shocked about comebacks because they're a lot more frequent. I mean, this is pretty much just true. Damn near objectively true. Like, that's just how it is. Momentum, I think, is really impacted by three-pointers, and the pace is much more significant. Teams are getting up much more shots than they used to. The shots that they're taking are equal one more point than they were in the 2000s and the 90s. Just the frequency of the higher amount of shots as well as the higher value of those shots has resulted in huge point swings happening very quickly. So yes, comebacks happening all the time makes a lot of sense from that perspective, and I don't know that that's really that hot of a take. That's just how people should be aware of how the NBA is right now, although some might just not be, and that's really just ignorance on their part. But yeah, that was Hot Take. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and that's it. Bye.